Hey guys, so today we're going to be looking at my top 5 favourite eyeshadow palettes and my 5 worst eyeshadow palettes. So let's just get straight into it. Okay, so I've got a range of high-end and drugstore eyeshadow palettes. I've also decided to choose things which are available still rather than limited edition items, because why show it to you if you can't even get it right now? So as of this recording, these are available. I think there's one which isn't available worldwide, but you still can get it on certain websites. So anyway, let's just get into it. So one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes of all time, something that you've seen already before on my channel, is the Makeup Revolution Naked Chocolate palette. This is the outside. As you can see, it's well loved. It's being used quite a bit. I do reach for this quite often. It's just got some of my favorite neutral and warm toned brown shadows, and I mean, you can literally create a look with this, like a complete look with this, from crease shade all over lid shade, just the lid shade as well. Like you can create a look with it. I'm not using this palette for this look here, but I could have created this look with this palette. It's great for anyone who has to do minimalist makeup or just wants to do really quick makeup. Like, to me, you can't go wrong with this palette. You can't go wrong with it. And I think this one's about $7.99 from Makeup Revolution. Next is the Urban Decay Moon Dust palette. I do still have the box for this because I just think it's so beautiful. So I do keep it stored in the box, but of course I wasn't going to have the box for this video. Anyway, so this is the inside of the palette. These are kind of like glitter pigments, and I like that they're an array of different shades. You can't use this to create a full look. I mean, they're all glittery shades. There's no crease shade, there's no transition, there's no, like, I would mainly just use these to create to put on my lid. You can use them by themselves, or you can use them over a shadow which you've already put down, but I do tend to find that they would work better with like a glitter glue, or if you do have something for it to adhere to, rather than by themselves, because I find that they tend to kind of, if you use it by itself, it tends to kind of flake away after a little while. So if you have some kind of base, they tend to stick to it a lot better. These shades are just so beautiful. Like, my favorites are the 3 at the top, the pinky shades and the purple shade. They're just so gorgeous. Next is the Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette. If you like, I still have my brush in there. If you like warm, rosy and brown tones, then this is definitely the palette for you. I absolutely love this palette. You can create so many different looks using this palette, and every single look that I've created has just been gorgeous and beautiful. This is something that I tend to go to a lot, and I have had to kind of say to myself, hold on, stop, because you're putting a couple of dents in a couple of these shades, so you kind of need to just like calm down a little bit and find some alternatives, because I like this so much. Like, I've seen some other people when they showed their Modern Renaissance palette and it's just completely and utterly beat down, but I absolutely love mine. I absolutely love it. It's one of those palettes that if I had to, I would most definitely repurchase this again and again and again and again, and even still I have to have something which is similar to it, or have shades dotted around which is very similar, because these shades are just magnifique. Next is the BH Cosmetics Take Me to Brazil palette. They are coming out with a second version of this, things like Take Me Back to Brazil or something like that, and I am interested in getting that. This is what the inside of this palette looks like. As you can see, I have been experimenting with quite a few of the shades inside. I do quite like this palette. I think this is like the only palette of mine that actually folds back. I hate folding back palettes, and I didn't actually do this. It started started to do it by itself naturally. I hate folding back palettes. I just feel like I'm going to weaken the hinge and eventually it'll fall off. That's just how I feel. That's what I feel is going to happen. But anyway, back to the palette itself. So as you can see, I have used quite a few of these and I have experimented with quite a few of these colors. I do like to every now and then branch away from browns and reds and warm tones and do something a little bit more out there, and this is definitely one of those palettes that I tend to draw to. Even though some of these shadows are a little bit hit and miss, 9 times out of 10 I can work these shades and I can create something gorgeous, especially if you use this with like a base. Like if you use is it the NYX stick in Milk, the white one, or Shell, whatever it's called. These tend to show up so well on a base. They are gorgeous and it's so affordable. So if you really want to start playing in color at an affordable price, I would definitely say pick this one up, because you can really get your money's worth out of this, and you'll have such a range of colors that you know you can't go wrong. The last one is the Kali Bible palette. Now this is the original one. It's not currently available, well, it's not going to be available again allegedly on the BH Cosmetics website, but it is on Beauty Bay still. I can't remember exactly how much they're selling it for on Beauty Bay. I think it's probably around between 13 and 15 pounds, but I absolutely love this palette. You can see that I have really used this one, like especially this color here. I don't think you can see it very well in the shop, but in real life there's like a huge dent in it, and I'm probably gonna have to ease up with this palette because I can't, well, I can still get it at Beauty Bay, but I think once those are gone, like they're gone, because she's brought out another palette, like the big one, which I still need to get, and I will get it eventually. But I really do like this palette. It's just, again, kind of like the chocolate bar, the Naked Chocolate palette that I just showed you from Makeup Revolution. This, it just has tones which you can use to create just an amazing look every single time. If you just have to do a quick look, or you're not supposed to, if you're going to school or you work a job where you're not supposed to wear a lot of makeup, this is definitely the kind of palette that you want to go for. It's just beautiful, and every single time I use it, it's the look that I come up with is just flawless. And now for the palettes, which are kind of like the 5 worst palettes that I have used, which are still currently available. I'm going to tell you why I'm not a fan of them. First 2 are the chocolate chip palettes by Too Faced. The first one I'm not too keen on. These shades are just so dusty. Whenever I put them on or try to use them, every shade turns out the exact same color. The pink is the same as this brown, is the same as this mauve, is the same as this peach. It's all the same. They all show up the exact same color on my eyelids, and it doesn't matter whether or not I use base, primer, whatever, it doesn't matter. They always turn out the exact same. They smell gorgeous. Oh, they're gorgeous, but it just always comes out looking dusty. And I understand that these colors are probably not for my skin tone, but you should be able to differentiate between the shades, and I can't differentiate between any of the shades. It's not the same for this particular one. Like this is just the chocolate chip one. The other one was the white chocolate chip, and this one's just the matte chocolate chip. Now this one has shades which is very similar to some of the shades in the regular chocolate bar palette, the full-size chocolate bar palette, but every shade in here is matte. Now some of these shades here are really pretty, you know, they're my kind of shades. They're very warm, and I love this purple, and I like this like red wine kind of color here, but there's so much fallout and there's so much work that needs to be done to build up the color on your lids that it just kind of makes me feel like, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Because then I'm having to incorporate yet another palette to brighten up any of the shades that I put on. It just takes way too long to work these shadows. It just takes way too long. So even though the packaging packaging for both of these, which I think was the main thing which was pulling me toward wanting to buy them. I just kind of feel like they're not, that the quality's not there. The quality wasn't, they feel like they were rushed, which is a sad thing because these could have been something incredible. They're really good for travel. They're really small and compact, but they're not worth me traveling with them because I'm not going to enjoy using it, so I'm not going to travel with it knowing that. Does that make sense? Next up is the sleek I Divine Oh So Special palette, and this is what it looks like inside. Now, I spent a long time choosing which palette that I wanted. There's a shop down the road from me that sells sleek products, and I used to go in there, like I went in there a couple of times. They had some of these out on display and I would swatch them and they were amazing. I mean, they were just so pigmented, but with swatches you're putting so much pressure into the pan, and when you're swatching on your skin it comes off just looking amazing. Sometimes that's why I feel like swatches can be a little bit deceiving because you're not putting that much pressure onto your brush when you're picking it up, and then it's going from the brush and being dispensed onto your eye. And what I found with this is that even though it swatches really nice, it does not go onto your eyelids very well, and you're having to work and work and work and work, and there's just so much fallout that it gets to a point where it's just like, this is not worth it. I just need to hurry up and get my makeup done. I just want to move from my eyes, get onto my foundation, just get this done and move on. But I'm just constantly having a battle with this. I mean, they've come out with so many other palettes, which again, when I've swatched, they are amazing, but it's kind of put me off purchasing any other sleek palette simply because I'm afraid that I'm going to have the exact same problem. And this was under £10, so it's not too much of a loss, but it's not worth it. If I'm not getting colour payoff on my eyes that I need, then what is the point? So I just don't bother. Next is the MUA Heaven and Earth palette. Now, again, it's the same problem. I got this particular palette in a glossy box, I think it was. I've got quite a few MUA palettes. Again, they all came from subscription boxes. And to be fair, all of them are practically the same. The colour payoff for all of them is practically the same. I feel like these are worse than the sleek palettes. They're just dusty. They just don't show up too good on the lids, and it's just too much work. Again, these are under £10, so they don't cost a lot. And I wouldn't say to anyone, if you are a starter in makeup, buy something like this. I wouldn't, simply because you're not going to get the kind of quality that you're going to require. I would more so advise that you go and get a BH Cosmetics palette, because at least with some of their shadows can be a hit and miss, but the majority of their shadows are good. With these, the majority of these are bad. When you find a shadow in the palette which is good, it's like, oh wow, that's 1 out of 12 shadows. And it's like, you don't really want to buy a palette to have 1 or 2 good ones. You'd rather buy a palette and have 1 or 2 bad ones. Preferably you want a palette with all of them good, but you don't want to go and get a palette which is predominantly bad. So I wouldn't ever advise anyone to get any of the MUA palettes. I don't feel like they transfer onto the eyes very well. Some of them do swatch good, or some of their shimmers can be good, but generally you're only going to find 1 or 2 shadows in a palette which are decent to use. I would personally feel like I've just wasted money on a palette which is just a dud. So that's just my opinion. Last palette is the Makeup Revolution Chocolate Love palette. This one is supposed to be a dupe of the Chocolate Bonbons by Too Faced. Obviously some of the shadows are just a little bit rearranged. Like, I think that centre pink there is supposed to be here, and this Earl Grey tea looking one should be there. So they've rearranged the shades just a little bit so that it's not so obvious and in your face. This is not my favourite palette, simply because I don't draw to it. They're not my favorite kind of shades, and some of them are really good. Like, some of the shadows are good, some of the shadows are a miss, but overall I just tend to avoid this one. Whenever I'm in one of my palette drawers, I'm just kind of like, I always skip over it. But it does smell nice. It smells like chocolate. To be honest, I wouldn't give this one away, even though it's not my favorite palette. I wouldn't give it away simply because it's part of a collection. I think there's like 9 in this collection, and I do want to have every single one in the collection, but it's just, I guess it's not my fave because I never ever draw to it. I've used it a couple of times and I was just like, okay, and that was it. That was it. You know, I just wore it. I just tried it a couple of times just so I know what to expect from it. But then, you know, nothing makes me say, oh, let me go and draw for my chocolate love palette. It just doesn't happen. So yeah, that's that. So that's everything for my favorite eyeshadow palettes to my least favorite eyeshadow palettes, and I hope you like this video, and I'll definitely see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and hit that notification bell as well, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.